Hello, this is the Crusader von Heisen Show. The purpose of this episode is to go over logical arguments for the existence of God. In the previous episode, I said I would do an episode on an apologetics topic, and the existence of God is a major topic in apologetics. In this episode, we're going to go over a brief overview of the logical arguments for the existence of God. Since this is going to be a short overview, if you still have questions about the arguments, I suggest you look up information on them. I also suggest you look up info from multiple sources from both sides. The first argument in this episode we are going to go over is the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument can be stated as nothing can exist in this physical universe without a reason why that thing exists. There are existing things, which includes the universe itself. An infinite series of causally dependent things is impossible because of logical paradoxes, so any universe must be finite. Thus, there must be an uncaused cause, which God fills this role the best. There have been objections to the argument, though none of them can debunk the argument. One of the more common objections is the term uncaused cause does not reveal much about the nature of that cause, but this does not debunk the argument. Another objection is that some object to the infinite series being impossible, but current observations do not back this objection up, and there are several arguments against this objection. The teleological argument appeals to the beauty and design of the universe. The argument states that the universe has the markings of a creator, and this argument is similar to the intelligent design argument. A simplified version of this argument would be if you see a I love Jane carved in a tree, one would assume that there is a creator. And if one sees the greatness and the design of creation, then one would also assume there is a creator. I would like to go more in depth of this argument, but it's the most complex and scientific of the arguments. I will likely do a video on this argument at a later date. I think those are the two major arguments, but I would like to go over other arguments. The ontological argument, in my opinion, is a slightly dated argument made by Ansel of Canterbury. The argument in its most basic form is that God, by definition of Him being the most perfect being, must necessarily exist. This is because nothing that is fictional is as perfect or as great as something that is real. Thus, if God is the greatest being, then He must exist. Personally, I think this argument was stronger when the doctrine of innate ideas was popular. In addition, some apologists and philosophers have been making more modern versions of this argument, so I suggest you should check them out if you're interested. Another argument is the moral argument, which appeals to the fact that there is moral truth, which implies some authority made it. The moral argument is that there are objective moral obligations which cannot be explained by natural or social factors. These obligations can only be explained by a personal source, which that personal source must have an authority to establish it. There are a few common objections to this argument. The first common objection is that there are no objective moral truths, which is a fallacy, because if there are no moral truths, that would in itself be a moral truth, thus a contradiction. Another common objection is that a natural source by the way of evolution can explain morality, but evolutionary ethics has continually failed to explain why something is wrong. Here's an odd little pragmatic argument I found a little while back. The argument states, God either exists or He doesn't exist, and you can either be a righteous person or not. If God does not exist, then your life is ultimately meaningless and you have no future after death, regardless if you're good or not. If God exists and you are bad, you are going to be punished, which is not a desirable outcome. The only positive is if God exists and you are righteous and go to heaven. Thus, it's most practical to believe in God and be righteous. There are several arguments based on religious experience and on miracles. The non-religious state that these accounts are fake or delusions, but people say that there are sins just like other events, and miracles are recorded in history, just like other historical events. I hope this video helps you and gets you interested in the topic. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, if you still have questions about the arguments, I suggest you look up information. I suggest a Encyclopedia of Apologetics, or if you're a very good reader, I suggest the works of St. Thomas Aquinas. I hope you have a good day and God bless.